What's going on, everybody? We're back again for another reading. This is Wednesday's reading. Today is let me pull up the calendar. Wednesday the 8th. Just so we're all on the same page. But you can watch this reading at any time. This is just kind of the guidance for today, but if you find that the day has passed, and this card's jumping out, maybe we'll keep that one for later. If you find that the day has passed, but you're still called to come back and listen to this reading, you are more than welcome. It does not just apply for Wednesday. It can be for whenever you find it. But if you're here for me, if you're here for this video on Wednesday, then welcome. You are among the first. And with that, let's get started with this reading. We already had a card that jumps out, and in case you're unfamiliar with kind of the format of how we do the readings here, normally I just kind of do a basic 3-card spread, past, present, and future, and that's just kind of the basic format, but sometimes I like to deviate. Sometimes I'll pull multiple cards at once, sometimes I'll pull a clarifying card. Usually I don't pull less than 3 cards. I feel like that's kind of a good round number, but sometimes we have to do a little bit of clarification. So with that getting started, let's start with the first card that I pulled, which is the 5 of Swords. Okay, 5 of Swords. What can you kind of tell us about where we're starting out, kind of in the middle of this week? This is kind of the energy of where we're coming from, what we, basically kind of the headspace we have going into today and going into kind of the middle and then the latter parts of this week. So we kind of have this, we have someone who has the most here. Of the 2 other people, he is carrying the most swords. He has the most. We dealt with the 7 of Swords in the last reading, and that kind of has to do with trickery, deceit. We talked about maybe kind of putting up some barbed wire, some consequences for the people who do you wrong. This kind of has to do with the notion of pushing that too far. It's kind of this victory at all costs. You see this guy here, he's clearly won, and he seems content, but the overall tone of this card is definitely a little bit sad. He's not, you can tell this isn't like a to the death competition. They're in an arena, but nobody's like really hurt. So it kind of seems like on this low stakes, this guy's willing to win at all costs. And you have to really criticize yourself when you're in that headspace. This might be kind of, you put up those little tricky spells, but maybe you got a little carried away. Maybe you pushed someone a little too far for what they had done. You kind of you essentially begin to kind of isolate yourself. So this is kind of dealing with the repercussions of that you have to ask yourself, what are you willing to do to be victorious in a very specific thing? Because it's not about winning at everything, because you can't win at everything. You kind of have to choose. You have to pick your battles. This guy has chosen to be a part of this battle, and he won, but what is the cost? Is it social isolation? Is it some kind of financial loss? Did you gain finances, but you lost a friendship? You really have to evaluate that. So we're kind of moving into this, middle of the week, asking ourselves, what are the consequences of our own actions? We had started off the week asking, what are the consequences of other people's actions in regard to, are we going to put up with that, or are we going to do some kind of retaliation against this? This is just kind of a reminder to stop and think about your own actions, how they affect other people. It kind of goes to that saying of like, you can either be right or you can be happy. And sometimes it's not always, sometimes you have to hold your own boundaries. Sometimes sometimes it sucks. Sometimes you lose friendships, and that just ends up what's the best. It ends up being the best thing. You don't want to keep those toxic friendships if there's no hope in improving, but you don't want to be the know-it-all type who's constantly sacrificing your social relationships for the sake of like petty disagreements and being right. So now that we have that kind of set as the tone moving forward this week, let's pull a second card to see kind of reaction to that. That's the energy moving in. Where's Where's kind of where we're at now, the present, I guess. Or just kind of a reaction to that energy. What can you do as a result? That's another way to look at this kind of middle card. Okay. We have the Four of Wands, which is actually a really good kind of response, I guess. It's a response card, basically, to the beginning card, because that first card has to do with isolation, but this card has to do with community. It's kind of about building foundation. You maybe kind of set the basis of your foundations with the 3 of every suit, and then the 4 is moving on from that. You're building off of the foundations you built with the 3. So here we're kind of building off of the lessons we learned with that first card in terms of isolations. This is about bringing people in. This is kind of about setting aside some differences. So you may have to be you may have picked your battles and may have decided that you kind of picked the wrong battles, perhaps. Everybody's picked the wrong battle at some time. I know I have. There have been times where I've gone out of my way to correct people, and then it doesn't really get me or them anything, even if I was technically right, but it sure puts a strain on the relationship, and that's just not worth it, so you don't need to be doing that. So here we're kind of setting aside differences. We're bringing together these people. Oops. It looks almost kind of like a wedding. I'm not exactly sure that that's kind of what this ceremony is, but it definitely has this idea of like bringing in groups of people together. So reevaluate the battles you've picked. Ask yourself if they're worth it. Ask if there's, you may find yourself being and feeling kind of isolated, and in order to get rid of that feeling, you might have to put aside some of the battles that you had previously picked. And I think the kind of lesson of this card and getting it right now is that might be a good thing. Not always it's your own situation, but I'm kind of leaning towards thinking that this might be a good time to just kind of set aside the battles you picked, and you'll kind of cast off this feeling of loneliness and isolation as we move into the middle of the week. I think this could be a really good thing for you. Now we are going to look at the last card. How we're going to kind of round out moving into the end of the week, and what we can look forward to in just kind of like the last couple days with the advice that we've taken from the first 2 cards. We got 2. Like I said, another vibe I'm getting is breaking your own rules, so we're going to kind of go with these 2 cards. Okay, so we have the Page of Cups, and we have the 5 of Pentacles. There we go. So these are giving off pretty different energies. So I'm kind of seeing that as like a choice, like you have a choice moving forward, which is an interesting thing in the tarot. I know you always have a choice, but it's unusual that you're kind of called to very specific pathways. So let's start with this. I'm called to start with this card. The 5 of Pentacles. So here we have kind of ruin being cast out in the cold. It's an earth card. It's very physical. It's physical consequences. So I'm seeing this as the path of kind of refusal, like, no, I picked the right battles, I'm doubling down, I'm tripling down. It's this very, like, you're basically setting it into the earth. You're writing it in stone. You can't go back on what you did. You're unwilling to be flexible. And obviously, that's not going to work out for you this week. So like I said before, being kind of called towards this action of maybe reevaluating. Again, you may not have to, but if you feel like you're called to, but then you're just too stubborn, this is kind of where it's going to go. It's pretty straightforward. It's pretty simple. I would highly recommend heeding this card's warning. I think a lot of the cards in the tarot can be skewed in more of a positive light, but it's in this one that it's really kind of hard to see the light in this. If you decide that you are going to double and triple down, then I do not think it is going to be a pleasant experience for you. I think you're going to do some things that cannot be undone. So be very careful when you're deciding if you're willing to dig your heels into the battles you picked. And then here, a card, Page of Cups, literally fresh start, like fresh water start. He has a cup full of water, he's a page, he's young, he's youthful, he's picking up, moving on. He's not attached. His attention span isn't very long. Like, he's willing to move forward, and look at how happy he is. He has a fish in his cup. Like, he's bountiful. He's great. You may look at the downside that he can be a little naive, but sometimes naivete is just something you kind of need. It's the death of the ego. We learn things and we feel like we expand and build these expertise, but then it gets a little bit more and more bitter to be proven wrong. It's not embarrassing to be proven wrong in like a 101 course where you're expected not to know anything. It's still a little bit, but then once you kind of become that expert, it's like, no, like I don't want to admit that I'm wrong because I put so much work in this. This is kind of like, it's like an ego check. Like, no, you're not that special. You're just a little boy with a fish in his cup. Like, calm down, move forward, water, get over it. Like, you'll be fine. So this is kind of that positive spin on reevaluating the battles you've picked so far in the week. So there's hope. The first card, maybe we've picked some suspicious battles, but moving forward with the lessons you know from this reading and just kind of your own intuition, there's some really positive outcomes coming. I think just being able to admit that you were wrong, or maybe you picked the wrong battle, or maybe it's somebody else picked the wrong battle and you're giving them the space to acknowledge they were wrong and not hold that grudges. Regardless, we're seeing that digging our heels in this week. It's not the look. It's not the mood you want to set. Nobody wants to be the person who's not going to forgive. You don't have to forget. Not everything has to be fine. But if you're just going to hold on to it, then like, at least ask yourself if there's a good enough reason you're holding on to it. That's all I'm saying. You don't want to be the person who was done wrong, but then it ends up hurting you the most because you're unwilling to move on, or at least forgive in some facet. Move on, let go. And that's how we carry into the end of the week. And I hope you guys enjoyed this Wednesday reading. I think it was a pretty good time. We're having a pretty good time. I love the way the crystal ball glows in the light. Maybe one day I'll do like a crystal ball reading for you guys. I think that'd be really fun. But yeah, that's the Wednesday reading. Hope you guys had a good time. Hope your week is going smoothly so far. I think I see a positive end to this week. I think it'll be a good second half of the week moving into the weekend, and I hope you guys are having a good one. Thank you so much for joining, and I will see you for Friday's reading.